So as you noticed there with the exercise, which was seemingly very simple, even in this simple exercise, there were a couple of challenging parts there. So here we have listed some of the basic pitfalls. And the first one is a tricky one. And there is something there, so let's see what it says. An entity that describes a report, user interface, or summary. And examples are patient card, bank statement, and ledger. And when we had the most important slide, as I named it, I said that the most important question is that can we count the instances of an entity? And actually, this satisfies this condition. We can point different patient cards. I can point one patient card, second, third. I can count patient cards. But still I claim that usually it is not an entity. And the thing here is that even though patient card contains a lot of important information, we are not interested in or about the patient card. We are interested about the information it contains about other entities that we are interested in, like patient, medication, operations, the procedures, and so on. So there can be information about a lot of things we are interested in, but the patient card itself is not interesting. In most cases, because it can very well be that in a certain healthcare organization, the patient card itself is an object that is relevant to the process, how they carry out their process. So it doesn't say that if you have an entity with a name patient card that it is necessarily wrong. Usually it would be, but not necessarily. It is just that based on just the name, you cannot really say if it is an entity or not. In most cases, patient card wouldn't be an entity. Data modeling or conceptual data modeling is so intuitive. It is about concepts and how they are related. And if you are modeling your business, it consists of functions, processes, systems, and so on. And everything is basically related to these things. Lots of things related to finance, HR, order processing, analytics, personnel. And I already covered this analytics. So whatever we do in data and analytics, almost everything is related to analytics. But here, the question that I said, that covers that. Can we point to different instances of analytics? Can we count them? One analytics, second, third. No, we cannot. So even though if we had in our mind map analytics, usually it is not an entity in our data model. The third one, there we have an example train. It doesn't say that train is a bad entity name. It is a valid entity name. What it says there is that we haven't defined the entity properly, and therefore it is ambiguous. In this one example we already had before, which was about the product item versus product type. So we used the same name for two different meanings, and it's the same thing here. So for instance, let's say that we were the management team of a train company. If there is someone in charge of the production, she would maybe mean by train the physical train, the cars of the train and so on, whereas the director in charge of passenger traffic might think that it is the train connection. But even if it is clear to everybody that it is about the connections, not the physical trains, so still there are so many different alternatives what it can mean. Whether it means that there is a connection between Amsterdam and Paris, that there exists such a connection, or does it mean that there is a connection at 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. on Monday mornings, or 7 a.m. Monday morning, the 14th of January 2025, or something. So it is what exactly do we mean by this entity? And usually when we are modeling, it may be so evident or seems so self-evident. Usually it is not. Also, we can, because we are modeling a business, we can include there anything, but we cannot include everything. So it is that even though in this space we have tables and chairs and so on, probably they wouldn't be relevant for whatever reason we are modeling. And the last one is actually very close to the product item, product type example that I have mentioned now a couple of times, is that we very, very easily mix things with types or categories of things. So the item versus type of that item. So for instance, here in the slides we have the boat example, but if it were about cars, so it is that particular car with some registration plate, or that make or model or type and so on. So if we have an entity called car, it can many times mean any single one of these choices that I listed. And the thing there is that when we are modeling, it may be so self-evident that we don't document it, and we should. That's the thing there. So we always should document what we mean by this thing. So how Alex Sharp put it, that the most important question is that what do you mean by? What do you mean by car? What do you mean by boat? Our remark was about the things there is that, for instance, the example of this classroom and the things we have here and the definition of these things, and especially all those things that we cannot see, those things that are not physical objects, then it usually becomes so much more complicated. So in my experience, for instance, things, for instance, in finance industry, like all the services, components of services and so on, which are not physical objects, the exact meaning of these things is far from unambiguous in most of the cases.